What's your best fire me, I fucking dare you moment from work? I worked at Burger King as a teenager. One day, the assistant manager, who illegally brought a teenage daughter to work to help her out, asked me to clean the restrooms. It wasn't my normal job, but I didn't mind. I had a good attitude about it and prepared to go clean the bathrooms. I walked into the men's room and discovered that the reason she asked me to do it was because someone shit all over the bathroom. Smeared fecal matter on the walls, the sink, the floor, the outside of the toilet. The toilet was clogged and hand wet, used toilet paper inside a vat and all over the room. It was a complete disaster. I walked out of the bathroom, went back to the kitchen, and told the assistant manager I'm not cleaning that. You can fire me, but I'm not cleaning it. She sighed heavily and went and got a mop. I'm not cleaning that. You can fire me, but I'm not cleaning it. She sighed heavily and went and got a mop. Little known fact. Health and safety. You aren't allowed to handle bodily fluids without training in safety gear. Feces counts as a biohazard, and chances are your under mass minimum wage workplace lacks both the OSHA required gear and never bothered to train you to use it, even if they got it. I wish I had known this years ago. I've been the unfortunate soul to clean up several times. And I'm a pushover, so I never say no. Recently, I was working a concert. The management at this site was trash and never actually gave us any orders. They just expected people who rarely work there to inherently know when to stop letting people in, when to kick people out, who was allowed in and who wasn't, etc etc. Well, and at the garden I let one girl in who said she was with her boyfriend who worked with the people who set up the concert. Supervisor was there with a couple of other supervisors and they laughed and called us lemons. Other guard didn't know what it meant. Before the supervisor could say anything, I said a lemon is a car that doesn't work. He's saying that we are bad at our jobs. He's saying that because blaming us for him being a bad leader is easier than admitting he didn't do his job correctly and helping us be better. Oh, things got real fucking quiet after that. I'm 5'2" and the supervisor had at least 4 or 5 inches on me. He got really close to my face and said I didn't quite hear what you said. Could you repeat it? So, I craned my head up at him and cleared my throat. I said, a lemon is a car that doesn't work. He's saying that we are bad at our jobs. He's saying that because blaming us for him being a bad leader is easier than admitting he didn't do his job correctly and helping us be better. He said he'd tell the home office that I was fired. I said yeah, okay, see you tomorrow. See, what he didn't know is that home office loves me. I'm the single most reliable guy they have. I show up hours early to a job, always willing to stay late if needed, and usually pick up last minute shifts. On top of that, they've never had a single complaint about me. Until that night. Don't know if he ever did call the office, because no one ever said a thing to me about it. He scowled when he saw me the next day, and didn't say a word to me. So I'm gonna assume that the office didn't believe him when he called and lol. My dog became very ill quite suddenly, and he needed to be put down. I was at work and I asked to leave half an hour early, so I could be there for him. I asked my manager, and she got annoyed, and said there was no way, and that I should have told her earlier. I said I'm sorry I didn't realize my dog was going to die in the most sarcastic way possible, then walked away knowing she'd follow me. I then stood at my desk, and typed my resignation up in front of her. She gave me the time off. No one was going to stop me from being there for my boy. There was a similar event at a company I worked for where a woman in my training class went through a family tragedy. Her close family member sustained a severe head injury in an accident, and after a couple weeks the family had to meet to decide if they would pull the plug. They were meeting in an afternoon, so she asked her manager if she could use one of her emergency PTO days to take the afternoon off. The office was trying to reach a certain daily performance metric, of which this employee's attendance for the afternoon probably would have made up less than 1% of their goal. The manager said, well, I can't give you the time off, because it's not really an emergency. You know the meeting is happening, and it isn't unexpected or anything. Anyway, the employee just called in sick for the entire day instead. For some reason, she stayed with the company for around a year longer than I did. Worked for a newspaper, editing and actually putting the paper together. arranging it all, placing stories and pictures where they need to be, titling, quoting, and sourcing everything. I was a one-man team and used an overly complicated system that I figured out how to use really effectively. They treated me like shit, set impossible deadlines, and berated me for not meeting them. One day the boss tells me to fully put a paper done by the end of the day, gave me no warning. I had no articles from the journalists, and no photos from photographers. It was my job to collect it all from everyone, and he wants me to do it in a single day. I told him no, if he wants it done, he has to give me more time. He tells me if I don't have it done by the end of the day I'm fired. I tell him that this paper can't function without me. He tells me I need to take the day off and cool my temper, and that he'll do my job for me. Get a call an hour after I get home that he needs me to come in and do it, and I can have as much time as I need. Promptly quit on that asshole. Fuck your shitty newspaper. Best one only took an hour of having to do your job to make them say fuck this. Nobody so far has given an example of when they did it and got fired, so I will, but some details are changed for privacy. I worked at a terrible retail boutique in college. Worked my way up to management. Their pay policies were illegal, and the idiot district director they hired staffed terribly. I worked open to close by myself multiple times. I finally locked up in the middle of the day to go take a break once. Got caught. Told if I did it again I'd be fired. Said stop staffing so shitty. They did it again. I locked up again, and a customer called corporate. I was fired. Last laugh was on them because I threatened to sue them for violating employment law. Longer backstory not for here. Sure did. Class action. Multi-million-dollar settlement getting back lost wages for 1,000 plus employees across multiple states. Plus unemployment for me. Actually what led to a complete life change for me, and I wouldn't be as successful now had I just let them continue to abuse me. Short-term financial pain and scary when you don't know how you will afford food or how to pay bills. Made it through and definitely worth it. Not only for me, but a lot of people benefited. Fuck you Park, you piece of shit. You don't deserve to still be in business. I've been at the company a long time, therefore I know both day and night shift duties in and out, are well liked by our clients, and in charge of training the new recruits. Most work for us up to 6 to 12 months, before growing tired on the workload, or finding that they can't handle the job or just wanted cash enough to study up for something else. Anyway, they are heavily dependent on me. My closest boss threatened to fire me for being home one day and drinking beer when I was supposed to be at work 2 weeks prior. I had agreed to do overtime, but I wanted a new schedule so I would not miss it. I got a new schedule, but she had forgotten to fill in that day on it. She blamed me for it anyway and said it was grounds for terminating my contract. I dared her to do it and see how long we could stay in business. Similar story here. Had a big staff meeting to plan for the upcoming year about holidays and such, so we could have the appropriately trained people on site to cover the guys that would be away. In the meeting I say to the owner, so do you want us to email you or the scheduler about this directly? He says both. So I say, okay, I'll email it in, but I will be gone for 2 weeks, and I tell him the date. He says that it's approved, but email it in. So I email it to him, the scheduler, and my foreman at the time. My holidays come, and on the last day I send my foreman a message, the usual, where are we, how has it gone, where's my company truck, who do I need to pick up tomorrow, the whole 9 yards. He fires back with, you didn't tell me you were taking days off, I'm gonna suspend you without pay for 2 weeks. Well, as you imagine, that didn't go well. I politely told him he could go fuck himself, and that I had the emails, and he was in the room when we discussed the exact dates I would be gone, and that his lack of planning wasn't my fault at all. So I phoned the owner, who I had happened to work for 7 years at this point, being the second longest employed person there, and told him that the 3 of us would be having a meeting in the morning to sort it out. So I write up my resignation and take it with me, along with my company phone, credit card and keys to the meeting, where the owner proceeds to fire the foreman after about 5 minutes and gives me the job as foreman for the cruise. thanked me for bringing it to his attention as it had happened before, and as being the most knowledgeable person about our product and equipment he gave me the job which I had for the next 5 years till I destroyed my back and had to move on. For the past few years I've worked at one of the nicer restaurants in my small beach town. I'm one of the only servers there who cares about doing a good, and I'm the only one who doesn't take a smoke break every 15 minutes. This past summer a new, very illegal, rule was implemented that, if we messed up an order in any way we would be liable to pay for that messed up food. I usually didn't have a problem with mess ups, so I didn't bring up the legality of this matter, since I make good money, and don't want to start fires in places that don't concern me. That until I rang in a cherry glazed burger instead of a cherry glazed steak, each stylized CGB and CGS in our shitty computer system. I fixed this with the kitchen, but not before they had already started the burger. I told my manager and she just gave me a disappointed and told me that the rules are the rules. I then dived into both federal and state workers' rights code and told her she would never see me again if I found any money out of my tips at the end of the night. Never had a problem fixing an order again. What is that? Like $3 to the restaurant? I would laugh my ass off if they tried that with me. I'm already over $40k in damage and mistakes for the year at my machine operator job. That's what I'm saying. They have big fish in a small pond syndrome. Just because they have no real competition they think their shitty frozen food is worth something. Used to work at a liquor store with two extremely unreliable people who loved drama. Both of them got into dick measuring contests with the manager and quit on the spot, leaving me and a skeleton crew to manage the rest of the crazy summer season. The rest of the crew spent a good portion of their shifts sitting on pallets, doing coke in the bathroom and or drinking on the job, so I was the go-to employee suddenly. Comparatively to the two drama queens, I was a very well-behaved employee, but I would sometimes take my tips and pop over to the coffee shop next door while on the clock. One time I stepped back into the store right as the manager came into the other entrance. I just stood there and looked at her. She kind of shrugged helplessly and let me do it for the rest of the summer. But as soon as September 22nd rolled around, she was like, fuck that noise. Working at an important political building. Been there for about a year. Other employees have been there for decades. 99% of the staff is black, including myself. None of us have ever been written up. New manager shows up. A older white lady with a complex and starts berating people for not doing their jobs when they are very clearly doing their jobs as the job is defined. She berates people until they backtalk, then fires them for insubordination. She fires 10 out of 13 people, all black, and replaces them with white workers. She approaches me and begins berating me. I'm onto what she is doing. I do not react. My lack of reaction leads her to tell me I'm being insubordinate and I'm fired. That was my I fucking dare you moment, although I did not say it. She fired me. 6 months later, she's been fired, her supervisor is fired, and his supervisor has been demoted to the worst position a supervisor can have. A lawsuit has been filed that resulted in about $100,000 in damages to the victims. Bet she won't do that shit again. Ha. I worked at an unspecified telecom a few years ago. I was a senior manager in charge of programming, third level support, and production support. A business unit bullied through code changes made by the business side through a side deal with a legacy programmer in the data center, circumventing my team. Callan production testing that just had to get implemented immediately without going through any testing at all. I refused. The SHIO overruled me. 72 hours later, phone activations had ground to a halt. Customers nationwide were screaming, and the SHIO called phone conference after phone conference demanding timelines for when I was going to get this shit fixed. He kept screaming to have members of my team to get on the phone and explain themselves to him. I refused. Finally I snapped and told him that if he wanted me to fix his mistake I would need to get off the fucking phone, go work with my teams, and the only reason they hadn't walked out yet was that I was keeping him off their asses, but we would all happily go together. 24 hours later, Cal and my team had the bullshit cleaned up and fixed for a clean rollout. This was all to avoid a 24-hour delay for CAS/production testing. I wish I could say that was the only / worst time. Well, not really work, but still. I was an intern at a 3D printer company. The manager was a complete piece of sh*t. On my first week he made a coworker cry because she sent an order to the wrong client. She apologized to the customer and he didn't mind. She sent the right one afterwards. However, the manager screamed and yelled at her for the entire week. It was a small company and I was sitting next to her at the time, but I didn't know how to react to the situation because if I was afraid he would fire me and then I wouldn't pass class. Well, the week after that I made a wrong sketch of an advertisement and he just completely lost his mind. He screamed and yelled at me. I stood up, called my school, and said what happened. They called the manager and was threatened to take his intern license away. I was left alone with my schoolwork after that, and he never screamed at any of us ever again. Passed the internship barely, and he hated my guts after the incident. Peace. Sorry if my English is not that great.